And welcome to the latest edition of Creative Mindset, which is not my normal show. And I'm here today to help out a dear friend of mine, Mr. Robert Sevilla, the creator of this program. And just want to say hi. You know my show, and maybe you don't, but I want you to know what it is, just in case. People Talk is my show, and that's on Monday nights at 8 p.m. live. So make sure you listen to that show too. So we're back, and we're good. Robert's here in spirit and physically, but his voice is not doing so hot.
Yeah, I can kind of add it, but my voice is just gone.
Yeah, let's try not to use it too much, but you choose when you want to butt in.
All right, thanks. Yeah,
it's your show, man. Okay, so who do we have today, right? And let's talk about the topic.
Hi, everybody. My name is Katy Purviance. I'm the founder of the Spokane Learning Co-op. This is my second time on the show, and I'm super excited to talk about what we're doing out there.
Cool. And then kind of let's get into it, right? Like you've never actually talked about this topic per se, like on the air yet, or have you?
Yeah, last time we did talk about unschooling, a little bit about what that is, and yeah,
let's do a
ready
recap.
For any questions.
Let's do a recap for me. You know, my first question: what is unschooling? Right? What is the definition of that?
You know, I think different families define it in different ways, but generally it's like it's learning without all the trappings that come along with schooling. And so a lot of families who are homeschoolers, unschooling is a way to do homeschooling, right? And so what that might look like is no curricula and no textbooks and no grades, and following the child's interest rather than imposing a curriculum on them. And so what that looks like at my little school or my little unschool, it's unschooling plus community. We're doing it together. And so there's no grades, there's no grade levels. We have age mixing. Right now we have kids as young as 1 and as old as 17, and plus the parents stay and participate as well. And yeah, the kids have the time, space, freedom, materials, support, friends to follow their own interest, and every single day it's a different day. We never know what to expect, and it's always delightful and beautiful.
Was there ever a culture that kind of has done this in the past, right? Really like nurtured people's like strengths, right? And like interests rather than sort of institutional learning?
Yeah, absolutely. So our biggest model is the Summerhill School in the UK. They've been around for over 100 years. Their motto is over 100 years old and still ahead of our time. And then in the States, in the 60s, the Sudbury School started in Massachusetts. And since then, there's been dozens of other Sudbury schools that have cropped up. And it's the same thing. Like there are classes, but nothing is required. Nothing is mandatory. Kids are free to follow their own interest all day. There were a lot
One second, just so you know, and everyone else, including you, we're listening to KRS Medical Lake Spokane, 88.1 and 92.3 FM. So continuing back to the conversation, because that needs to be done.
It does.
We need to know who we're listening to right now, right?
So yeah, like in the 60s and 70s, there was a lot more schools like this. Sometimes they're called free schools. Sometimes they're called democratic schools. Democratic meaning that the kids vote on what they do. And that was kind of part of the zeitgeist at the time, part of that culture of freedom.
What's the age range right now for who you have right now currently enrolled?
So right now we have kids ages 1 to 17.
Wow.
Yeah. We might have an 18-year-old joining us soon.
And so you've kind of got like a pretty huge age gap there, you know, but you're able to capture what they want to do. So let's say the 1-year-old, what does that look like? Let's go with the 1-year-old and then the 17-year-old, kind of what that looks like for them.
Okay, yeah.
Structure-wise.
So the youngest kids, we have 2-year-olds too. You know, for them it's waddling around on the land and sitting down in mud and playing in the dirt and
having fun,
picking stuff up. Yeah, we're on 10 acres just outside of city limits in North Spokane. We have some straw bale pyramid. We have lots of building materials. We have books. We have art supplies. So for those youngest ones, it's really kind of like waddling around and playing in the dirt. One of the moms with a 2-year-old, she calls us Dirt School. So I've embraced that. And then for the older kids, like the 17-year-old and the 13-year-old and 15-year-olds, they all like to read. And so we have a literary society where we sit at our picnic table, we go around and we take turns, we pass a stone around our talk rock, and we just share the latest thing that's happened in our book. Whatever, we're all reading different books. So it's like a book club, but we're all reading different books. It's impossible to be behind. It's pretty cool. And then we interrupt each other to ask ridiculous questions. It's pretty fun.
How do you track learning?
We don't.
You don't track like there's no milestones to track. Like if like you know how there's like standardized testing and whatnot, which is complete opposite, right, of your thought process for your school, which I think is wonderful. Because one thing that I've seen and the frustration that I've seen working with kids in my field, especially when we talk about their school life, is that a lot of them just are uninterested in I guess the status quo of whatever is being taught, right? Like I'm not interested in English, but I love math, but, or the opposite, And so it's really interesting to hear, like, they have a voice and they've made it really clear, like, what I'm really interested in, what I want to do, but then they're not able to do that. And so I really like that you're saying, if someone came to your school and was like, I really like math, I don't want to like write a bunch. Maybe I can, maybe like do some basic stuff that is going to help me in life, but I really want to excel in math. Then you guys would nurture that. Yeah.
And, in practice, it looks different. Nobody ever comes to us and says, I'm really interested in math. What they say more is like, I want to build something. Mm-hmm. Math is part of that. Or they want to cook and math is part of that.
100%. That's why I can't cook. Yeah. So, I'm a words person.
Oh, me too. I get
visual
it.
and words person. Very cool. So you've been doing this for how long?
So we opened in September. So almost 6 months now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you got a pretty good enrollment rate.
Yeah, we've got, I think, 23 kids now. We have a family with 2 kids who just joined us. We have another family who's coming to visit us next week to see if it's a good fit for them.
What would you say is like the most popular reason that people are choosing and opting out of like standardized, institutionalized learning, right? And wanting to try something different like your school? So
we have 2 different kinds of families who come to find us. Most of our families, they've been homeschooling the whole time. They're already disenfranchised with school from the very beginning. So for them, it's really easy. This is a very natural next step for them because it means outdoor play and it means new friends and it means like-minded people. But we do also get people who, until very recently, were part of the public school system or were in a private school. And for every family, there was some kind of event where they were just done. And all of these families, they've been trying to work with the school system. They've been trying to work with teachers. They've been trying to get IEPs to be followed. And
this is what I hear every day.
Yeah. And because of just continuous failure for the schools to meet the kids' needs and the families' needs, for every family, they reach a point where it's like that straw is broken and they are just done.
And at some point, like I said, I'm interview kids all day. Okay. Yeah. And a lot of the popular reasons that they come to me about their dysfunction at school, sometimes it's seen as something that might be behavioral, but sometimes it's out of frustration because this person has an IEP. This is let me just be really, this is a really general one that I hear. I have an IEP. We've had a meeting. We've tried to sit down with all the administrators and my teachers. They've agreed to my accommodations. And then we get in there real time in the classroom and they're in math class and they're not understanding something. And they're saying, can I please have some extra time one-on-one with you when you're done with the lesson? I'm getting frustrated and I'm upset and I don't know how to do this. And then the teacher ignores them and goes on with their lesson, or has like sort of favorites in the class that they will favor more, right? Because probably higher testing scores, right? Which looks good data-wise, right? This is just my theory. But the other kid gets so frustrated, they put their head down, they shut down, and they won't talk, and they don't want to do it anymore because they feel like they've been kind of overlooked and ignored after going through all these hurdles to get an IEP or a 504. And so that's something that I think you would not have happened, right? You would be like, great, you need a little extra time with us, right? You need some extra time for a specific thing you're having issues with. You have the time at your school to do those types of things.
Right. So first of all, I want to say that it's the thing with the IEP, that's a very common scenario, what you just described. Like I've heard almost that exact same scenario from different parents. There's mechanisms in place in the school system to create these IEPs and have these meetings, and it looks like accommodations or modifications are being set up to support the child. But in practice, teachers have already so much on their plate, and nothing is ever taken off their plate. I want to say most teachers have the best of intentions, and they go into the meetings saying like, yes, I believe in this. Yes, I want to do this. But in practice, they just don't have time. They might have 30 students in their class, and several of them might have IEPs, and they just don't have enough time to actually do what they need to do and even what they want to do. And so I don't want to blame teachers, right? I want to blame the system. The system
100%.
does not give them enough time, does not give them enough support, does not give them enough resources to do their job.
Like most things, it's the systemic failure. It's not an individual's failure.
You're
They didn't
right.
create this entire
absolutely
way
not.
of institutionalism that we have as our status quo type of education.
I'll pipe in on this because
Yeah.
I went through school. I was not diagnosed with any sort of learning disability until I diagnosed myself in college.
Yeah.
And then I have two boys. One of them does not have a learning disability, and the other one does. And so I was like, "Here's the good news." I'm like, "You're struggling now," and I'm like, "But I've got all of the solutions." And I go, "The only solution is first understanding that you're not dumb,
No.
and that there's just a process that you need to figure out what is best for you." And then that part about the overworking a teacher, it's so true.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we have to all understand is that it's not just the teacher's responsibility to do that. The parent has to participate, and if you can't get that same participation from the parent, you're not going to have that.
Which I can
plan.
say is an issue I've also seen, which is like,
It's-
are you helping with the homework as well at home? Well, no, they shut down about school when they get home and they don't want to do it anymore because home is home and school is school. And I'm like, fair enough to have like healthy boundaries with your mental health.
Yes.
But at the same time, if you're struggling, you're going to have to figure this out somehow and either get resources to the school or this is going to be a continual issue.
And then there's the other thing of, if the kid has learning disabilities, guess what? The parent probably does too.
Yeah.
And they probably don't understand that same work that the kid's asking. So there's some honest problems going on. What is the solution? I don't know. The whole reason why I think this is a fit for creative mindset is that for me, creatively, you just have to kind of think yourself, like think yourself into try something different. And I think homeschooling is one of those things. I think I learned through school, I learned how to be social until I got into college. And that's where I really learned.
And that's where I wanted to piggyback on that is that I see a lot of homeschool kids are happy that I work with, but the socialization piece is missing. And a lot of the time they are depressed or sometimes they have some sort of anxiety, what have you, in social situations because they just aren't getting enough of that time with someone. And sometimes it's like they're just an only child, so I think it's great because what you're doing is not trying to just like homeschool someone. You're also giving them, like a sense of community where they actually have people to talk to and of all different age ranges, right? And everybody's able to sort of, kind of talk and communicate and kind of be like a community, right? No one's separated by grade or anything like that. It's like, can you explain that to me?
Yeah. I would say that one of the magical things about what we offer is the age mixing, because when you have kids in school, everyone is about the same emotional development level, and a classroom becomes kind of a tinderbox of whatever that emotional development level is, and that is just really too much for one adult to be able to manage all of that. But when you mix ages, that goes away. What we see is that the older kids nurture the younger kids, and the younger kids look up to the older kids, and it becomes more of a microcosm of what society actually is, because nowhere else in life are you in a room all day long every day with people who are born the same year as you. Like, that's absurd. That never happens.
Strange.
Right? Yeah.
For 8 hours at a time.
Right. And I also want to talk about socialization, because we tend to think of school as a place of socialization just because there are other people there, but you're actually not allowed to socialize in school.
I've heard that
right?
plenty of times.
You get in trouble. Like, I can
seen as a behavioral issue to try to be exploratory with how I want to be social.
Right. Like, I think about my own story. In first grade, I never spoke because I was so afraid of getting in trouble. And then I noticed other kids were speaking and not really getting in too much trouble. And so in second grade, I never shut up. I was just so interested in all the people around me. I could not stop talking because I just wanted to know about everyone. And I kept getting my name on the board and 3 checks after my name. And I would stay after school. And it's like, I didn't get it. Like, I was 7. I didn't really get that there was this expectation that I would just never talk all day long, unless it was like the expectation in school is that when you do speak, it's because the teacher has called on you, and that you will speak on the topic that the teacher wants you to speak and say what the teacher wants you to say, and then stop talking when you're done. Like, it's a very controlled environment for being able to speak. And then you have recess and lunch, and that's your socialization time. But that doesn't really work either, because you get 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. That's not enough time. Like, you need to scream into the void for 15 minutes after being in that kind of environment. You don't get to develop those in-depth relationships that happen in Sudbury schools and free democratic schools, where students say that one of the best things about that kind of environment is all the conversations they get to have. And I would say the biggest thing that we, quote unquote, teach kids is how to communicate, how to negotiate, how to solve problems amongst themselves. Because there's no bell getting in the way. There's no teacher telling them to get back on task. It's just they're trying to manage themselves.
With the co-op format, I really like the fact that there's having an older sort of mentor, because that modeling is one of my learning styles that works best with me is just seeing someone do it that could do it with fluency. Yes. And then usually it's older, more experienced, and then you just go and try to basically duplicate that or mimic it. And when you're in that same grade, they're basically
everybody's struggling.
They're making a struggle with the wrong solution, and everyone follows the wrong solution, because you never get the right solution until you passed in your test, and then you're doing the wrong thing, and then you just spent like a week studying for a test that you were studying wrong anyway.
Right. You never get to see examples of a peer doing it easily.
Yeah.
You never get to see an example of what it could be like for it to be easy.
Well, and which style of learning has actually been around longer, right? That mentorship, sort of hunter-gatherer community type of stuff of like, this is how we do it, and we are going to go do it together. And you can watch me do it, and this is how we do it right, and then you're going to get good at it too. And then we're done.
Yep.
And you've learned.
That's exactly
But
how
instead,
it works.
where exactly does institutional learning stem from historically? I'm not sure. What time period did this kind of birth from? And what was the political environment and religious environment?
Let me. So this is the part that I understood. That was the unschooling format. Was the unschooling was unschooling, unteaching what or unformatting what our structure has given us, and our structure is the national education, which was created, where they created this uniform education, was basically for industrialization, right?
Right.
Like the Industrial Revolution type stuff. Like that's when stuff became like super popular and like schools were kind of mass produced.
Basically, I want to comment real quick on what you just said, that you might be talking about deschooling, which is the process of healing yourself after you've been in school.
Oh, see, I didn't know there's a difference. So
So unschooling is following your own interests, and that's how you learn. And deschooling is like, I'm so shook about everything that's happened in school, and I'm not able to learn anymore because I'm so upset and traumatized by what's happened to me in school. So I need as long as it takes to do literally nothing.
Can you do both?
To get interested.
Are you able to do both? Right? Like I feel like, can you do both at the same time?
I've seen fights break out in Facebook groups on that exact topic.
I feel like I did that because I dropped out of high school, right? I have a master's degree, right? You know, I make a pretty decent living.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't get there like everyone else did, right? Traditionally. I'm not a traditionalist.
Yeah.
I don't believe in it.
Yeah.
I never have. I guess I could be seen maybe as someone who's oppositional. I never felt like I wanted to follow your rules. I was always an abiding citizen and never wanted to harm others, right? I have a certain integrity and inherited, you know, this inherent thought and this empathy in myself to where I don't want to destroy. I want to create. But I never had anybody have to teach me that. Right. And that was the pushback when I was in school, as I was traumatized from the experience of school, because I went to a school in the South and it was very strict. Right. And, you know, like I think strict in the regard that maybe my home life wasn't as strict at school. Okay. And that was a problem because I had a lot more freedom at home. And so when I had to go somewhere, it was like, nope, you can't be yourself anymore. You have to be who we need you to be. Sit still. And I'm sure I'm undiagnosed, you know. Something. I got more energy than any other person on the planet most times. You can probably tell right now as I'm talking to you. It's never gone away. It's a fire that burns. But that fire all the time was trying to be extinguished by my authority figures, right? Teachers, whatever. And I think what you're doing, I would have thrived in, right? Because I would have had people to talk to, people that listened, right, to my ideas. Even if it was off topic for what we were saying, it doesn't make it any less educational in the moment, right? And many different dynamics, right? For that situation. It's just not, you know, it's not as, I guess, it's more fluid and it's less controlled, but I still feel like I would have learned just as much. So I unlearned by dropping out of high school, right? And I didn't stop reading, right? I didn't stop learning. I just learned the things that I wanted to learn. And then I had to unlearn simultaneously all the stuff, right? De-learn. I want to use the proper term.
Okay.
De-learn
De-school
all that
yourself.
stuff. De-school myself
Yeah.
of all that poison that I feel like kind of like was brought about by just like that structure and that energy, right? That was being kind of that synergy, that negative synergy that was being kind of like just constant in my life. And I couldn't get away from it. And I fought constantly. And I finally got away. And now, like I said, I found what I'm good at, right? And my passions are. And I'm doing that for a living now. And I went back to school when I felt like I had de-learned, right? Because let's be real here, people. We don't go to school most of the time because we want to. We go there because there are pieces of paper that I have to have for my title and nobility so that I can practice what I do with a certain level of respect from society. Doesn't make me any smarter or any better than the other person.
Right.
There are people that probably could do exactly what I do better without that piece of paper.
Yeah.
So that's the thing as well. What you're doing is not only more economical,
Yes.
but I think it is more beneficial for the person who's not your average like learner,
Yeah, and I would say school,
quote unquote.
school doesn't work for most kids. Like, I've been a teacher since 2013. I think I have one student that entire time who was meant for school. I remember one day she raised her hand and she's like, when are we going to talk about commas? So aside from that one person, most kids most kids need something different than the sit down, shut up model of school. When I talk about what my school is like to people, a very common response I get is that would have been perfect for my brother. A lot of boys, they're labeled ADHD, but I don't know, we can argue about this, but I think if we didn't force people to sit down all day long in a little gray box and do what you're told, I think we would not see so many symptoms of what we call ADHD. I think it was Gabor Mate who said that if you take these same kids and you let them be outside, they become the natural leaders. And their behavior in the classroom is every cell in their body fighting back against this oppression.
If
Good word choice. Oppression would be the word I would use for what I was experiencing for 10 years straight, right?
Yes.
Chris, if you were to make up, without hearing what Katie's classroom would look like, if you were to create like an ideal classroom for yourself, say your son was like, hey, and said that your son was you, like you're bringing up yourself, would you have
Let's
an
just
environment?
disassociate. I'll just look at my young self right
Exactly.
now. As
Like
I'm looking
how would you teach
at myself?
How would you
from
teach
outside.
yourself if it wasn't through that school that would drive you crazy and make you want to drop out?
I think, like, honestly, it would have been more of like that mentorship kind of mentality or an apprenticeship type of a mentality. Like, I think, sort of, I don't know, was it more like a medieval type thing where, like, I like what he's doing, so I want to hang out with him and I want to do that. So, like, if I want to be a blacksmith, I'm going to go and talk to the blacksmith and I'm going to hang out with him until I get old and he needs to pass over the trade, or I think that I've made it the cut and I am skilled enough to where I can create my own. But, like, I think in my mind, you wouldn't be able to give me everything that I needed, okay? But like, if you could try. So I would definitely say like multiple instruments, access to different forms of music, different forms of literature, lots of it, right? Lots of creative writing, maybe some structured stuff, right, with some prompts. Yeah. But like, it would be a lot of different things because my stuff's all an amalgamation of what I was curious about at the moment, and now some of that has stuck around and some of it's gone, But I mean, like, I dropped out of high school, but I'm sitting here reading Nietzsche like in like the 7th grade because I'm so miserable that I can relate with him more than my peers, right? So I don't know if that really paints a picture for you of like where my mindset was in like the 7th or 8th grade. I was just like, I went to private school as a younger boy, and I was excelled in, school because I was shuffled for socialization purposes. I was taking from a place where I was thriving, where I was ahead of the curve, and I'm a little bit more intelligent than my other peers, right? Yeah. A little bit further ahead in those milestones. And then I was put into public school, and it was a disaster. I had no social skills. I was a guy that you give me what needs to be done, I do it, and I move on. And instead it was like, well, now you got to figure out like the complexities of like hurting people's feelings and understanding people's emotions and getting kicked in the face by somebody who has anger issues. All this stuff where I came from a place where it was like, it was basically like a boys' school or like an academy. Like, okay, you have these rules to follow. You wear a uniform. And then when I went to public school, I was like, these kids are like 3 years behind where I'm at. Like, this is crazy. And I had more one-on-one teachers. I had more one-on-one everything, But there was a religious element to it that made it extremely agonizing for me, right? Like corporal punishment was the way that we were punished in that school, right? Luckily, I had a father who would rather jump in and stop that, right, and handle things himself.
Good.
But most people's parents didn't, and they just let it go. And I'll always remember, and this was in private and public school, the wailing of my classmates after they may have done something that was pretty ordinary for a kid to mess up with. Right. Because something I talk about a lot is unrealistic expectations, right? Especially in developmental stages of youth, right? And like, you got an unrealistic expectation of me when I'm 12 to be a good boy and sit still. And if I don't, you hit me. And so it was terrifying. So I have trauma, and I'm sorry you have to hear this, right? This was 90s, late 80s, early 90s type of schooling. But I remember sitting in my classroom, if the door was open, you hear that poor kid getting hit with the paddle.
Oh, my God.
And it was just like, and the principal walking around with the bullhorn, and he's got like the paddle, with the holes in it. And you're just like, man, like that's what's going to happen if I step out of line. And so that's where I think the subversion started, of me being like, I am a rebel. I do not like this, and I'm going to push back. I just don't think it's going to be now because he terrifies me. But But I've been in different types of versions of like institutionalism. Private school that had a religious foundational aspect to it, which I thrived in academically, but did not agree with belief wise.
Okay.
And then public school, where I was just like, I feel bad for these kids because like, they're very far behind. And I think it's more of like what we kind of talked about in the past, was like a resource issue. But yeah, no, there's been a lot. So going back to the initial question, what do I need? I need lots of different experiences at my fingertips to figure out what exactly I'm gravitating towards.
Yes.
And that's in all aspects, right?
Yes.
Music, art, literature, math even, I hated math as a child, but then as I grew up as an adult, I saw it as like, wow, this gives me solace because there's a beginning and an end. And I'm so used to never having like a closure with anything that I do because I'm more of a creative person. Yeah. Nothing's ever finished.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So Katie, I'm getting I'm assuming that you get minds like this, right? That don't quite fit in that structure of public school, right?
So kids like that absolutely thrive, right? Because they can start and stop any activity whenever they want to. Right, and they can initiate anything, and all the kids get to help co-write the rules together. It's all about them. It's all about what works for them. I don't impose anything on them. Everything that we do emerges out of what happens naturally.
I can remember wanting to play the piano.
Yeah.
And my teacher, he was a cool guy. He had fingers like Jack Skellington from Nightmare Before Christmas. The guy's fingers were like this long. But I remember going, man, I really want to play piano. And I wasn't able to.
Why?
Because of my parents, right? Because musicians are the devil. Even though I ended up playing music eventually anyways, and didn't really care what anybody thought. But I think, what would I be doing to this day if I would have played the piano from that day forward since I was a first grader? I'd be doing that professionally right now. That's what I would be doing because I would love it because I love music. But I kind of feel like that opportunity was taken from me because it wasn't nurtured. And this is why I try to also teach people, right, and parents, pay attention to what your kid likes to do and what they enjoy doing, and stop like getting so hyper focused on what they're failing at, because it's not so much a failure. They're just disinterested most of the time. If you ask them,
well said,
they're just not interested. It's not that they're failing. They don't care.
And then conversely, you look at the things they do care about. You can't stop them from learning.
No.
They're going to learn. Get out of their way. They're going to go change the world with that thing that they care about.
You can see it in their grades. I love writing. I'm a poet.
Yeah.
English scores are off the charts, but the math, I'm not a mathematical person. Oof, they're kind of not doing so well there, right? But it doesn't make them dumb, right? Because they're not meeting every single little institutional, milestone, right? Like standardized milestone.
And it doesn't really matter, too. Like if we look at, I had this great conversation with somebody who started a school similar to mine in Boston. He's been going for 10 years. He said that if somebody is quote unquote behind in reading, and then they get all these interventions, they start to develop this stigma, and they start to understand, something's wrong with me. There's something that I don't quite match up with my peers, and they internalize that. But by the age of 25, all those kids are all reading about the same level. And it would be fine, except this child has internalized this message of shame that there's something wrong with them, and that becomes their lifelong identity. If we let kids read whenever they read, then that sense of shame and stigma doesn't develop. And then they become they're already a normal person, but they don't have that sense that something is wrong with them. Like if a child reads at 5 and another child reads at 9, by the age of 13, you can't tell who started earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we got to take a quick break.
Let's do it.
We'll be right back. I'm having a great conversation. Join me, Chris R., for People Talk, a live call-in talk show that gives listeners a chance to share their thoughts, ideas, community issues, and more. Each week we'll have a topic of discussion to stimulate a conversation among the masses in the greater Spokane area. You'll have to tune in each week to find out. You talk, we talk, People Talk. Mondays at 8 p.m. on KYRS Thin Air Community Radio.
The Fig Tree presents Sharing Wisdom, Connecting the Generations, the theme for their benefit lunch, which will be held Saturday, March 8th, at Hemmingson Ballroom at Gonzaga University. The buffet opens at 11 a.m., and the program is from noon to 1 p.m. The program will also be available on gonzaga.edu/livestream. Information online at thefigtree.org.
This is your KYRS live and local calendar for February 22nd through the 27th. Saturday, Working Spliffs at Chan's Red Dragon and Jada, Kung Fu Vinyl, and others at the Knitting Factory. Sunday, All Ages Blues Jam at Fired Up Pizza in Chewelah and 40 Feet Tall, Hell Motel, and Dairy Baby at the Jaguar Room at the Chameleon. Monday, Nate Stratty at Zola and the Mac Movement Open Mic with Ben 10 at the Red Room. Monday and Tuesday, Open Jam at Jackson Street. Tuesday, the All-Star Jam with Jerry Lee Raines and Brian Bielansky at Zola. Wednesday, Denver Rhiannon at Maryhill, Aki Fumikato and Ron Green at Zola. Acoustic Jam with Craig McQuain at Andy's in Chewelah. Children of the Sun Drum Circle at Heart Space Yurt. Open Mic with Derek Hart at the Checkerboard and the Roommates Jam at the Red Room. Thursday, Dark Watch at the Big Dipper and Fam Jam Open Mic and Jam Session at the Neon Moon in Hilliard. For an entire hour of local musicians, tune into Sounds of Spokane every Sunday night at 8 on KYRS.
Creative Mindset receives support from the Northwest Museum of Arts and Culture. The MAC presents Samurai Sunrise Sunset through June 1st, 2025. This exhibition features armor, weaponry, and personal items of Japan's samurai class. Located at 2316 West 1st Avenue in Spokane's historic Browns Edition. More information is available at northwestmuseum.org.
And we are back. So let's make sure you are on mic 4. Here we go. So kind of jumping back in, and before we get too ahead of ourselves, do you have anything coming up to where like the community can kind of reach out and kind of learn more about what you're currently doing at your school?
Yeah, absolutely. So March is coming up, and so we're now accepting March enrollments. We have 3 different weekly sessions that people are welcome to join. We have a Tuesday morning that's 10 to 1. Right now we have kids ages 1 to 8. We have a Wednesday afternoon session, and that has kids ages 5 to 11. And we have a Friday afternoon session, also 12 to 3. We have some teenagers in that, ages 10 to 17, and that's a description of who's there, not a limit on who's welcome. It's really about your schedule. We do have some kids who come to multiple gatherings. And so if that's something that you're interested in, now that winter is kind of over, now that it's warmed up and the kids are now barefoot in the mud out there, feel free to learn more about us and what we can offer your family. Our website is www.SpokaneLearningCoop.org. You can also see us on Facebook, Spokane Learning Co-op. And if you want to reach out to me directly, my email is hello@SpokaneLearningCoop.org.
Love it.
One more thing, we're looking at different options for preschool and kindergarten programs, and it would not be like a regular preschool kindergarten program. It would be our outdoor adventure play, it would be our arts and crafts, it would be our cooking, it would be all the stuff that we're normally doing, but on a schedule that's more familiar for people looking for a preschool or a kindergarten program. So that's something we're going to start up very soon. So if that sounds interesting to you, reach out to me. You can also get yourself on our mailing list by going again to our website, www.SpokaneLearningCoop.org, and you'll see a link for mailing list and sign right up, and I'll be announcing that very soon.
Super cool. I mean, I feel like what you're doing is great. And like, like you said earlier about like, man, my brother would have done so well here. Not only would I have done so well there, but many people I meet every day. And I'd love to have this as a resource to at least offer them to inquire into so that maybe they, are not going to continuously have these quote unquote behavioral issues, right? And they can go somewhere and really find like themselves and be like, wow, I'm at peace. I'm no longer being like, basically punished for being me.
Right. Well said.
So, and speaking of that, with enrollment, is there like a sliding scale? How does that work? Like scholarships, like what does that look like for families, right?
Yeah, so we have two different prices. So originally when we got started, we wanted kids ages 5 to 18, 5 to 17. And so we have a price for that. But there were so many people with younger kids who wanted to participate. And we're not a daycare. And so I said, all right, you can come, but you have to stay, right? For our older kids, we asked them to come. So it's a weekly thing, right? And so we asked parents to stay once a month to help out, to help assist, help with cooking, things like that. But for the younger kids who are under the age of 5, so 0 to 4, the parents stay the entire time. So these are two different prices. So for the older kids, it's $120 a month. And for the younger kids, it's $78 a month. And if that causes a financial hardship, we work with every single family. So all you have to do is reach out and it's a conversation.
That seems very reasonable to me.
Thank you. We think so too. We spent a lot of time workshopping our prices with other providers around the area. One mom said to me like, wow, you can't even get childcare for such a low price.
No.
We are trying to make it as accessible as possible. We're trying to be the most inclusive, diverse, welcoming alternative education option in the area. And I think we're already there.
Well, if they weren't sold on the curriculum, they're definitely sold on the price, right? Because what you're doing, is a valuable asset to the community, right?
Yes.
What I've always taken pride in is like working with the so-called undesirables of our society, because those are my people. Right?
Me too.
And I love them.
The troublemakers are my favorite. Like every year as a classroom teacher, on day one, I'm looking, who's that troublemaker?
Yeah.
Because by the end of the school year, I love that kid so much, I want to adopt him.
Yeah?
Yeah.
No, I love that. So thank you for what you're doing, right? And now you've allowed me to give a resource to people that I work with on a daily basis that might really need you.
Well, our doors are open. We don't have doors, so they can come.
I love that too.
Hey, Chris, maybe you can, since you're so good at getting people to call in, you can give out that number. And if they have any questions, we can just answer them on the air right now.
Sure. Man, I really should have posted this on my story for People Talk as well, because I could have got my People Talk people calling in too. 509-747-3807 if you're feeling like you have a question or a comment, whatever. If you just love KYRS or Creative Mindset or People Talk, just go ahead and call in 509-747-3807.
Actually, let's give a quick plug to your show. Like, what is your show and when is it and what is it about?
What is it about? I have no idea. No, I'm kidding. Didn't I just tell you how I learn? And I don't thrive well under structure. No, my show. So basically, show's called People Talk. It's on 8 p.m. live call-in talk show. It's an amalgamation of madness that can stem anywhere from UFOs, Bigfoot, paranormal stuff to social justice issues. We just kind of covered a little bit about that situation that happened in Coeur d'Alene with that doctor at the town hall meeting. Social justice issues, like I've said before, that are definitely affecting our community directly. Just about anything, musicians, poets, artists, etc. Just giving a voice to those in the community that I feel should have a moment to be heard by our community. And I think, and watching them thrive, right? And wanting to share that with their stories, right? And their struggles. A lot of it is sort of laced with mental health types of topics. A lot of people that come on end up wanting to talk about how whatever medium they've chose really helped them get through a tough time or maybe convince them to continue to live. There's some pretty powerful stories. So, I mean, like I said, it's really hard to pin down what exactly this show is other than it gives a voice to local individuals in our community to talk about what they feel like is important to themselves and or socially in our community.
Yeah, I think your show is super cool. One, because when you announced that I'm going to have a caller participation show, everyone was like, no one's going to call in. He's going to be sitting there alone. And he gets the calls, man.
I do. I've gotten some weird ones.
Timing, and it's fantastic.
Good
that you
ones,
get the calls.
weird good ones. I've gotten some strange ones. But somebody tried to order a pizza one time, and I was like, I really should have patched them in because I would have loved to have had that conversation on the air. But like I said, I just found out a gentleman, in a whole cell block in Spokane County Jail is listening to my show at 8:00.
Wow.
Shout out to all those guys, in cell block. I think it was D.
Cell block D, nice.
They all called in and were like, we love your show. Like the other night I was talking about art with Brianna Miller, who's a nationally recognized and locally recognized artist. And we were just talking about art. And one of the guys called from Spokane County Jail and was like, I just started to do art and learned how to do art, and I've always wanted to, and I was able to have the time to do it here now, and it's kind of changing my life.
Wow.
It's helping me get through a really tough time. So is your show. So thank you for saying that. It helps me feel good about what I'm doing and the energy that's being put into it. And to everyone out there that's been supportive, I think I got an underwriter for March, may have something more permanent soon, but yeah. Shout out, man. Thanks to everybody who's made my show. And also, thank you, Robert, again. He kind of going into that mentorship sort of conversation of how things start. I didn't know how to use any of this stuff or, use the microphone or the board or anything. And I came in and Robert was able to kind of show me the basic functioning of the studio and I got it done. And, without his help, I'd be staring at this board right now trying to figure out which buttons to push. So, yeah.
I was happy to help. In fact, Katie, you probably noticed this. He looks more like a talk show DJ than anyone at the station.
I actually was thinking that when
Yeah.
you first introduced yourself to me. I was proud.
I'm like, dude, you're going to be the poster child of KYRS, Chris.
It'll be the first time that it's been a positive poster child of me.
When I think of DJ, a talk radio show DJ, or even just a straight DJ, in my mind, it looks like you.
And we're back. Yeah. Shout out to my girlfriend Amy because she plays that video for me from SNL all the time with these two DJs, and one of them's Ben Affleck, and I forget the other one. He's got a late night show now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, dude, so funny.
That's good.
But thank you.
So, Katie, I'm going to ask you about so the Trump administration and I guess Musk.
Oh, you mean the Musk administration?
They disassembled, or are they going to? Did they, or something about the education format, and then that they said that all states are on their own, creating their own state standards. I know that there's state standards, but then there was this national kind of umbrella thing that started under the second Bush administration, which was like no student left behind.
Oh, no child left behind.
No child left behind, which I remember that coming out. I think I was already out of school.
I don't remember what year that was. Somewhere around 9/11.
It basically brought everybody back. Like I think it felt like it held everyone back. So I'm wondering if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, he's doing a lot of bad things right now.
Yeah. You mean
but
what's currently going on? Yeah, it's certainly shaking everything up.
Is it the? Are they disassembling the
Department of Education?
No child left behind.
That specifically, I don't know.
Because that wouldn't be bad to lose.
But to your point, are you aware of anything happening to the Department of Education and how that's going to affect us nationally?
We should ask the news guys just before I hadn't left one of them here. They have all kinds of stuff.
Right? I don't know. All the news lately has been pretty overwhelming, and I try to.
You have to take your head out of the sand periodically just to know what's happening and be like in the now. But at the same time, I'm not going to inundate myself with it to where I am like affecting my overall health.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it might be by design just to try to, you can't keep up with all the stuff we're going to be doing.
Completely overwhelming.
This is what I like to do. What we're doing right now, I really try to strengthen my community and be a part of my local community and the people that are in and out of my life on a daily basis because truly you cannot take and control that from me or through laws or politics or whatever. If I am close and I have close relationships with the people in my community, and that is all artisans of all walks of life, then my quality of life and my life is going to be well no matter who is the so-called king. So
let's not even say that word.
I said so-called
okay.
because that was implied by someone else, right? Yeah. But no, if I can keep my community healthy and happy, that's the best I can do right on a micro level at the moment, right? And until I guess people can organize and will organize and have been, which I've seen some good news. Yes. And could I share maybe a little bit of good news?
Yeah, please.
there was a church in D.C. It was vandalized by the Proud Boys, right? And they recently won a lawsuit for the damages that the Proud Boys defaulted on, and have acquired their logo and all their trademark stuff, right?
Wow.
So now the church has revamped the logo and is still selling the merch online, but taking the merch and the money to invest into other anti-racist, anti-types of fascist types of movements in the country. Right?
That's an amazing development.
It truly is. And they have used the system, just like others have abused it, to take back, right, some control, right, and to try to fight back against the hate that they have directly been exposed to. Yeah. And so I thought that was a really wonderful story. That was like last week they won that, and that was in the news. And so
Brilliant.
I want people to know that it's not all doom and gloom,
Yeah.
but you have to be active, and you have to fight sometimes, and they chose to fight. Right. And they had the lawyers to do it in Washington, D.C. to back them up. So just want to say it's not all doom and gloom, but you do have to get up and be an active part of this society if you want things to be different.
Yeah. You have to participate.
100%. You can't just sit around and think people are going to solve it for you, because I think that's what most of us want. And I think your school's teaching you to do the opposite. Don't sit around and be nullified and do what everyone else tells you. Do what you want to do and love what you like to do.
Yeah.
And nurture that.
Yeah.
For the rest of your life, not just in your school, right?
Yeah. Like, we don't tell people what to do. We, create an environment where the kids get to develop their own rules. The rules work for them. If they have a problem, they go back to the rules to see what's there that can help them. And if something's not working, we can change it. Nothing's carved in stone. It's like a living document that we can all rely on for rules for how those specific people who are there can work together.
Love it.
Nothing is imposed on them.
We do got to take one last break.
All right.
Good for you.
Let's do it.
Hey, hi, it's me, Aunt I. You can join me right here on KYRS every Wednesday night from 10 to midnight for the Electric Bender, where you will hear the very best of electro rock, electro hop,
Here we go!
and electro pop. Each week we will take a journey through the genres of electronic music. Who's ready for the bender?
And if you're really enjoying our programs, Creative Mindset, People Talk, and every other wonderful program on this radio station, and you're feeling generous, could you please get out your cell phone? Because we all have one, and I know it's in your pocket or sitting in front of your face right now. You can text Give KYRS to 44321. Again, text Give KYRS to 44321.
That old gas
Mindset
guzzler in your
receives-
driveway? It's more than just a liability. It's an opportunity. Gas prices have made it a burden. But at KYRS, it's pure gold. Whether it's purring or sputtering, your car can help keep this station on the air, powering the programs you can't live without. Now, here's the deal. Donate that vehicle, and it's a win across the board. You'll get a tax deduction, a KYRS membership, and the satisfaction of knowing you've kept your community radio thriving. It's quick, easy, and makes a real difference. Call toll-free 855-KYRS-CAR. That's 855-597-7227. Turn your old ride into a lifeline for KYRS today.
Mindset receives support from Spokane Rock Rollers Club, formed in 1958 to unite people with common interests in rocks, gems, and lapidary arts. Spokane Rock Rollers is hosting a Spokane Gem and Mineral Show March 28th through the 30th. More information at 509-315-8236 and online at SpokaneRockRollersClub.org.
And we're back.
And we are back. And we're back.
We're back.
I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself. But It was Jimmy Fallon, by the way, that is the other radio host in that skit. Ben Affleck, Jimmy Fallon, they're like the most over-the-top radio show host, like skit ever in my life I've ever seen.
I'll have to look that up.
It's ridiculous. Like I said, my girlfriend Amy showed it to me. Shout out to her because I would have never known, but it was spot on. Anyway, well, we are at the 50-minute mark, so I kind of want to try to like wrap things up with everybody, right?
Yeah,
kind of see
idea.
like any final conclusions, any type of like thoughts that you feel like you may want to share with the community before we kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, one thing I want to encourage parents to do if your kids are currently in a coercive schooling environment, whether that's public school or private school, is if your kid is struggling, before you get your kid tested for ADD, get your school tested for PDD, play deficiency disorder, because I bet you that's what the problem is.
I love that.
You know, when we were talking earlier about the boy in the classroom, I think the hard thing is the boys in the classroom is that they're mixed with girls and their development is different.
Yes.
So I bet the boys would have done much better if they answered a question and then ran a lap, like a hot lap, came back, and they could probably just keep functioning. Because I mean, the same problems that my son's struggling with, it was the same thing, but at least now, since we had it, I mean, I didn't find out till college. He found out and we went through it in, I think it was just junior high school. And that's kind of where my separation happened as well. But just being able to allow kids to do different things. I mean, now you can have like wiggle boards like underneath the table for kids in school, and just to get some of that anxiety out. I remember, I think we tried him on some stimulants, and he's like, there's an anger inside me, and I was like, I'm like, those are the stimulants. Like
It's quelling like all that energy and the anger, right? It's just like suppressing it towards like,
yeah,
I need to get this out.
And it's all like based around like something that's difficult for them to process with all of these other like stimulus and things that we're trying to push on them, trying to fit them into this box that there's no way they're going to fit in it. Just
meet
like
the
you were
standards.
talking about.
Meet the standards.
Yeah,
meet the standards.
Here's the thing, those wiggle boards and the drugs, those are all coping mechanisms.
Exactly.
Why don't we just not put them in a system where they have to just cope all day? That's not healthy.
Yeah. No, coping skills are healthy, but it's not okay to have to put someone in an environment on purpose that you know is not conducive to their average behavior, right? Like, it's going to upset them. It upsets them every day. That's why I was really curious. And I guess my last quick question for you is, have you had any kids that have come from other schools that have had, quote unquote, behavioral issues, right? And they've come to your school and they're not having those issues anymore.
Yeah. We just, we don't have any of the regular trappings of school, right? We don't make them sit down. We don't make them be quiet. We don't make them do math when they don't want to do math. And we don't make them stop when they're in the middle of something just because a bell rang. Like, we're not oppressive. We don't do any of those things that would incite what somebody else might call a behavior problem. And so therefore there's no behavior problem. I've yet to see a behavior problem.
I think it's a special person
awesome.
and a special observation too, because learning's fun.
Yeah.
Learning is super fun once you're comfortable with it. But it's so easy to make someone hate learning when it's shoved down your throat in this way. So if there's a takeaway from this show, it's just that if you view yourself, you view your kids with some sort of hesitation for learning, they just haven't found that right learning style for them. I know some people say there's no learning styles, but there is learning styles. There's ways that it goes in. So if you have questions about this, reach out to someone like Katy. Katy, you should give out your contact info one more time.
Yeah, email me at hello at just one hello. Hello at SpokaneLearningCoop.org. I am here to help. I will answer any questions. I'm really easy to find on Facebook. You can send me a message.
Cool. Well, I would like to say, thank you for being on here, and thanks for allowing me to be a part of the show today. It's been fun.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot, and I've gained a new resource for the community. So, especially the demographic I work with, which is children and teens.
I am so thankful for that.
Yeah. Now I have an
let's
answer.
help them.
I hate traditionalized school, and I'm not doing well, and I'm getting in trouble. What can I do? Well, let's work through it therapeutically, and then let's see if something else might work for you better, right? Something's a better fit.
Yeah.
Because it's like trying to fit the square peg in a round hole.
Let's just try something different. It's as simple as that.
Because that's usually not the case. And I just want to say one last final thought, and it's the end of the show. the anxiety that a teacher has to feel teaching 30 kids to meet the same standard, right? While they're also having all these developmental, like sort of things that are going on in their lives on top of environmental factors from family life, et cetera, socioeconomic status, poverty, whatever it might be, malnutrition. That anxiety from that teacher is translating onto those children, right? Because they're trying to do their best. And so it's like, I just want to say one more time, systemic failures on all across multiple systems.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And this is just one, and I'm glad that we can highlight it. Thanks for being a resource.
Thank you.
And we're done. Everybody have a wonderful afternoon in Spokane. And you are listening to KYRS Medical Lake Spokane, 88.1, 92.3 FM.